Guys, this is week 6 of us being only online. And can I just say as we start, I miss you guys. We miss you guys. And we always used to do this thing when we were meeting where we would at the beginning of the service, we would shake hands or we would do fist bumps or we would do high fives. And so here's what I want everybody to do. It doesn't matter where you are. We're going to do a virtual fist bump just to start the service. And so anywhere you are, I need everybody on 3 to give me a fist bump. Now, don't punch a hole through your TV. We can't afford to replace your TVs, but let's do a virtual fist bump on 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom. Look, I'm feeling your fist bumps through the screen, all right? I feel Fenwick's fist bumps. I feel Rehoboth's fist bumps. We're so glad that you're with us. And let me say right out of the gate, we're honored that you would let us in your house. Thanks for letting us in your cars. Thanks for letting us on your phones. Even if you're watching on an Android phone. Look, it's okay. God's grace is big enough for Android users, but we're so glad that you're just letting us into your life. And we're going to have church today wherever you are. And to start church today, I just want to ask you guys a question. And so we're going to put this question on the screen. Help me answer this question. Have you ever felt like you needed a miracle before? Have you ever felt like you needed a miracle? Go ahead, shout me down in your living rooms, on your Android phone, so put a comment in the comments. Have you ever felt like you needed a miracle? Now, I'm raising my hand to this question. I remember I needed a miracle on my honeymoon. So here's what happened. 12 years ago, I was standing actually right here. I literally got married right here on this very spot to my dream girl, which, speaking of miracles, all right, the fact that my wife married me, that is a miracle. Have you seen my wife? Okay, the only thing I can explain that is a miracle. And we got married right here, and 24 hours after we stood here and got married, this Gumboro boy, this Sussex County kid, was in the grill, Jamaica, laying on the beach with my new bride, and the beach was this white sand beach. The water was the clearest water I've ever seen. There was a sandwich hut shack thingy right behind us about 20 feet on the beach, and you could eat all you could of Jamaican jerk chicken. Come on, I am preaching right now. If that sounds good to you, put a palm tree emoji in the comments or something, because we're just having a good time on the beach. It was a great honeymoon, except for one thing. When we got there, we were checking in, and the person checking us in said, "Mr. Tice, I just need to let you know there is a nude beach section." And I was like, "There is?" And I was like, "No, don't worry, all right? We are not Adam and Eve. We are gonna wear clothes." And he's like, "Oh, no worries, man." He said, "There is a row of bushes that surrounds the entire beach area that's a nude beach area, and so no worries, you won't see them." And I'm like, "Praise the Lord." Okay, so that's good. I don't need to see any of that. And so we go to the beach, and I'm laying on the beach, and I look over. First day, I look over, and I see this skinny row of bushes, and they're unhealthy, these bushes. And I'm thinking in my mind, there's no way that those unhealthy bushes is the row of bushes he's talking about. And within a few seconds of me thinking that, no lie, these people walked out from beyond the unhealthy bushes that looked like Adam and Eve. They were more naked than Adam and Eve. Or as my dad puts it, they were naked, you guys. And I don't really know how to say this, but they were old. They were so old that I'm not even sure that they meant to be naked. They maybe just forgot to wear their clothes that day. I don't know. But I needed the miracle of sight because those naked people blinded me. And so for the rest of the trip, me and my wife, Stacey, we went to the other end of the beach. And we sat behind this activity hut that was there where you could kayak and windsurf. And so we were talking to the guy who was running the activity hut. And he's like, what brings you guys over here? And we're like, "Well, y'all got naked people over there. And you need to put some Miracle Grow on your bushes or something." And he said, "Well, how about I teach you how to windsurf?" And so I was like, I'm down to windsurf. And so he gave me this quick lesson on the beach, and then he just kind of turned me loose. And so I got on this windsurf, and guys, I went this way. I did not go back towards the naked section. So I went down the beach this way, and I started windsurfing. And guys, I could do it. I was like, I'm a windsurfer. I windsurf. And so like I got all the way down to the end of the bay, and I looked back at the resort, and the resort was so small that the little new beach section was like this. So everything was great. And then I went to come back to our resort, and when I turned, wind hit me in the face. And that's when I thought, like, I understand how wind brings me this way, but I don't understand how that same wind takes me back that way. And so I didn't remember that part of the lesson. And so what I did is I got on it and I looked this way, but I went this way. And so I didn't know what to do, and I started panicking. So I started swimming back to the resort against the current, against the wind. I'm pulling this wind sail in the water, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I'm like, this is it. I'm going to die. I'm going to die on my honeymoon, and my wife is going to be left on a beach alone with a bunch of naked old people. This is not how I saw it ending. And so I started praying. I was like, God, I need a miracle. I will do anything. If you just get me out of this mess, look, I will stop eating jerk chicken sandwiches. I will root for the Steelers. Just kidding. I'm not going to go that far, okay? But I was like, God, I will do anything. I will become a pastor if you let me get back to the beach. And I prayed this prayer that I needed a miracle. And thankfully, I finally swam back and got to the beach. And that's how I became a pastor. But I tell you that story because I think we all have a story where we were thinking, I need a miracle. And, you know, I think sometimes we need big miracles. Sometimes we need small miracles. And like a small miracle could be like, you know, maybe you need to go to the grocery store on a Saturday morning, which is like prime grocery store shopping time. And you need to go there because you need toilet paper. I'm talking like you need it. Hello. And so you're trying to physical distance, but you got to go to the grocery store to get TP. And on the way there, you're like, God, I just pray that the grocery store will be empty because I'm physical distancing. And I pray that the toilet paper aisle will be full. I need a miracle. And that's a small miracle that we ask for. Maybe you're driving and you look down at your gas gauge and the dial says 0 miles until empty. Who on the internet has ever had that happen where you see 0 miles to empty? Some of you do that, okay? If you do that, just confess it in the comments. My wife, okay? But if the dial says 0, some of you are like, Jesus, would you just get me to the Royal Farms? Would you take the wheel? I just need a miracle. And so sometimes we ask God for small miracles. Sometimes we ask God for big miracles. I've talked to 2 people that are friends of mine in the last few weeks, and both of them said, Joel, I've lost my job, or my hours have been cut back. My money isn't coming in like it was coming in. Unemployment isn't cutting it. I need a miracle. I had someone else tell me recently, Joel, I'm in this custody battle because I want to see my child, and things aren't going well, and I just need a miracle right now. I think every one of us would say that globally, we all think we need a miracle right now. And almost every night when I go to bed, I just say, God, would you just like rescue us from this nightmare that we're living in, because we need a miracle. And here's what I know. Every single one of us have said that before. I need a miracle. And here's what I know about God. Sometimes we ask God for a miracle. And it could be for anything. It could be for an addiction. It could be for anxiety. It could be for your health, for money, for marriage. Okay, whatever it is, we ask God for a miracle. And sometimes God does the miracle. And we're like, woo, praise hands, emoji. Okay, I'm going to put the comment that what Jesus did on Facebook. Sometimes God answers the miracle. And sometimes we ask God for the exact same miracle, and it doesn't happen. And that's confusing. And so miracles are complicated. And I'll just tell you, like right out of the gate, there's so much that I don't know about miracles. But here's what I do know. I do know that this book is full of miracle after miracle after miracle. And I don't know if you know how many miracles Jesus did, but Jesus did almost 40 miracles. And I don't think that Jesus just stopped. I believe that Jesus is still doing miracles today. I believe he's still breaking addictions. I believe he is still healing. I believe he is still rescuing marriages. And so if you need a miracle today, keep asking, keep believing, keep doing what only you can do, and trust that God will do what only he can do. Now, speaking of miracles that only he can do, Jesus had a friend. And Jesus' friend's name was John. In fact, it was one of Jesus' best friends. And John wrote a book about Jesus. And the book's name is called John. And a little joke there. I don't know if you caught that online. But anyway, so in John, John recorded 7 miracles that Jesus did. And so in this series, we're going to talk about the 7 miracles in the book of John that Jesus did. And so today, it's miracle number 1. Now, I don't know if you know what Jesus' first miracle was. Maybe you'll say, well, okay, it's probably when like Jesus walked on water, or maybe it was when like Jesus raised his friend Lazarus back to life. Like maybe that was the first miracle. But the first miracle included, well, let me just show you visually what it included. It included turning water into wine. Now, before you email me, this is not actual wine, okay? I did not bring a wine bottle up on a stage with actual wine in it. This is filled with Gumboro water, which actually has some kick to it, so I thought that would apply kind of as like real wine, okay? So, but here's the thing. As a preacher's kid growing up in Gumboro, I don't really know much about wine. I know that the very first time I saw a bottle of wine, I was at my buddy's house. He lived on a farm in Gumboro, and they had a bottle of Boone's Farm. Now, I've never had Boone's Farm, all right, but it sounds hillbilly enough that it probably pairs well with some scrap or something. I don't know. But the very first miracle that Jesus did, he turned 180 gallons of water into wine to keep a wedding party going. That is completely true. Like, you can't make this stuff up. I tell people all the time, like, you need to read the Bible. There's some good stuff in here. Because Jesus is at this wedding party, and he turns 180 gallons of water into wine. So, let's kind of get in that moment, all right? So, Jesus is there with his friends and family. They're all doing, like, the cha-cha slide. You know, cha-cha, real smooth. And they're at this wedding, and then this is how the story of Jesus' first miracle starts. It's in John chapter 2, starting in verses 3 through 5. And it says this. It says, the wine supply ran out during the festivities. And so Jesus' mother told him, Jesus, they have no more wine. Dear woman, that's not our problem, Jesus replied. My time has not yet come. But his mother told the servants, now don't miss this. Jesus' mother said, do whatever he tells you. Pause. That is backwards from how I grew up. The way I grew up, if mama said it, like you did it. I remember in the summer when I was a teenager, my parents would go to work. And when me and my brother would wake up, my parents are already gone to work. And my mom would leave this giant list of chores on the kitchen island. And so this list, let me just tell you, it was comprehensive. It looked like the menu at Cheesecake Factory. All right, it was like this enormous list of chores. And we had to do stuff like rake the leaves. We had to vacuum, dust, all these different things that my mom would put on the list. And my mom would separate it by name. So she would put my name and put all these chores. She would put my brother's name and put all these chores. But the absolute worst chore to see under your name was my mom saying, weed the garden. Guys, I would have rather re-shingled the roof in July than weed our garden. And here's why. Our garden growing up was 100% weeds. I don't think I ever saw like one actual plant in that garden, but daggone it, we were going to weed the garden. And me and my brother had very different philosophies on the chore list. Like for me, I would see the chores and I would do them immediately because I was like the responsible child. Hey, Tim, shout out to you. My brother, Tim, on the other hand, he would see the list, and he would wait until my mom's 1987 Buick Century pulled into the driveway, and then he would try to pay me to do the rest of his chores on the list. That's completely true. But I remember asking my mom, after we get all these chores, I would say, Mom, like, why do we have to weed the garden? And Mom said the most famous line of all, okay? Every mom says this. She said, because I said so. And that's all it took. She said, because I said so. And moms have this universal line, okay? They say, because I said so. And so there's this universal rule. If mama says it, you do it because she brought you into this world and she will take you out of this world, right? And so when it comes to Jesus, though, Mary, his mom, she flips it all upside down and she says, hey, you just do what Jesus says to do. Now, in Jesus' day, running out of wine at a wedding was a big deal. And in Jesus' culture, weddings lasted about a week. And if you were the wedding family that was providing and putting on the wedding party, if you ran out of wine, then your family got shame put on them. The whole town would look down on you with shame if your family ran out of wine. So this is a big mess. And so they're at this wedding party, everything's good, they got their wine, they got their Boone's Farm, and then bam, they run out of wine, and they are in a mess. And then Jesus' mom, Mary, says, Jesus, we need a wine miracle. And so I think the first takeaway in Jesus' first miracle is this, and we'll put this on the screen. It's to trust that God's good even when life gets messy. Trust that God's good even when life gets messy. And they were in a mess at this wedding because they ran out of wine, and this family was going to get all sorts of shame because of it. Now, speaking of messes, I have 2 kids. Come on, parents, you know all about this. And I remember a couple years ago, it was a Friday, and my wife, Stacy, she was at work, and I was at home with my kids, and it was lunchtime. And my kids were 4 and 2 at the time, and so my daughter, Nora, who was 4, she was at that stage where, like, she didn't want to eat anything. Didn't matter what you put in front of her, she didn't want to eat it. My boy, Nixon, was 2, and he was at the stage where he would eat anything you put in front of him. And he's still that way, okay? Now he's like 5, and he's like a shop vac. You put anything in front of him, like, he's going to eat it. But when he was 2 years old, he'd eat anything you put in front of him. And whenever you would tell him it's time to eat, Nixon would get completely naked. Now, I don't know why. We never taught him to do this, but if we said, hey, Nixon, it's time to eat, next thing you know, Nixon was more naked than that couple I saw on the beach in the Girl Jamaica, okay? Just totally naked. And so I put naked Nixon into his high chair for lunch. I put Nora into her chair for lunch, and I got my kids some ravioli because they loved ravioli. But then I made a really bad parenting mistake. I went to the bathroom, and I left my 2 and 4-year-old alone with Chef Boyardee. That is stupid, okay? And this is why I don't do messages on parenting. I'm still figuring this whole thing out. Because when I came out of the bathroom, my kids had made such a mess with ravioli that this is true. There was ravioli on the floor. There was ravioli on the walls. There was ravioli dripping off of Nixon's seat. My dog, Eli, was having a heart attack. He was so excited to eat all the ravioli all over the house. Ravioli was everywhere, and it was a complete mess. And I remember I said to Nixon, Nixon, man, like, why did you do that? And Nixon, I never forget this. This is the funniest thing. I said, Nixon, why'd you put ravioli everywhere? And little naked, ravioli-covered Nixon said, Daddy, I don't know why I do the things I do. And I was like, well, I can relate to that right there. Me neither. But it was such a mess that today, to this day, I have trust issues when it comes to my kids and ravioli. And I tell you that story because I think life is like that sometimes. Life gets messy, and when life gets messy, we say one of two things. We either say, God, I need a miracle, or we say, God, look at this mess. I don't think I can trust you anymore. and we start to get some trust issues. And have you ever noticed that life's messes can come out of nowhere? Have you noticed that? I mean, just think about where we are in the year right now, just so far. I mean, in March, beginning of March, wasn't everything like awesome? And just fast forward 6 weeks later and things changed so fast. I saw this meme on the internet that just basically summed this up perfectly. And so we'll throw this first picture on the screen. So look, March 1st. This is kind of us, okay? Everything's good. We're all kind of like Baby Yoda. We're wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. The future looks bright. The toilet paper aisle is stocked in the grocery store. Like everything is good on March 1st. But then, if you go to April 1st, just 4 weeks later, this is how we feel. We feel like Yoda, right? We look like we've been in quarantine too long. We've been homeschooling our kids, and so, hello, that'll make you look old real quick. Some of us got white hair growing out of everywhere, and you can't even dye it because the salon is closed, you guys. And so we went from this to this so fast. And that is how life is, okay? Things can be good for years, and then bam, out of nowhere, life hits us, and things get to be a mess real quick. And when life hits us, we're like, God, I need a miracle. And isn't it true that it's hard to trust that God is good when life isn't? I mean, you can answer that in your living room or just kind of like answer it inside. Like, isn't it true that it's hard to trust that God is good when life isn't? And just as you're answering that, think about this. Everything is good at this wedding party until they run out of Boone's Farm, until they run out of wine, and they're in a mess, and everybody is wondering, can I trust this family that threw this wedding party? And then, when they're in this mess and they run out of wine, here's what happens next in verses 6 through 8. It says, standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each of those jars could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Pause. That's 150 to 180 gallons. And so Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. So 180 gallons of water. And so when the jars have been filled, Jesus said, now dip some out and take it to the master of the ceremonies. In other words, the wedding coordinator. And so they take it to the wedding coordinator, and it says the servants followed Jesus' instructions. Now, if you're one of these servants, this is crazy. Because Jesus is like, hey guys, okay, I need you to go fill up these things with water, and then I need you to take some of that water, give it to the wedding coordinator, and have them taste the wine. And they're like, Jesus, it's not wine, it's water. We know it's water because, hello, we just filled it up with water, okay? It's water. Or if you're from Sussex County, it is water, okay? It is just water. And so what I think we miss in this story a lot of times is nowhere in this story do we know or does it say that the water has turned to wine yet. But the servants trusted Jesus enough that they followed his instructions anyway. And so don't miss this, okay? The miracle of Jesus turning water into wine, we don't know exactly when it happened. But we do know that the servants trusted Jesus, and we'll put this on the screen, the miracle happened on the way. Now, isn't it true that most of the miracles that we experience in life happen on the way? Now, I know that sometimes miracles happen instantly, okay? Sometimes you have like a microwave miracle, you have like an instant miracle. But have you noticed that most miracles that we experience in our life are like crock pot miracles? Like that baby's got to cook for a while before it's like ready to come out. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been in the church world for 16 years, working in the church. And I know I'm not in your living room with you, but I've been around people in the church long enough to know that if I were to sit down with you, most of you would say, I've experienced some sort of miracle at some point in my life. And you might not like tell that story very much because you don't want people to look at you like you're crazy, but I bet you most of you would say, hey, yeah, I got something that's happened to me that I can't explain. And maybe it was like an instant miracle, but more often than not, those miracles that happen in our life are things that happen on the way. So for instance, when me and my wife Stacy got married, okay, we got back from our honeymoon, we didn't have any money. Like we were broke. We were so broke, we had to eat cereal with a fork just to save milk. Okay, like we had no money. That's funny. Even in an empty room, I think that's a funny joke. But we didn't have any money. And I remember just looking at our bank account and saying like, God, we need you to provide for us. And we went through financial peace, but we were still broke. We set up a budget. We tithed the whole time, but we didn't have any money. And I remember years later, I was looking at one of our bank accounts, and I looked at Stacy, and I'm like, we're not broke anymore. Like, we're blessed. And like, when did this happen? And the miracle happened on the way. I remember when Stacy was pregnant with my boy Nixon, and we went to have his sonogram done, and the person did the sonogram, and then afterwards the doctor came in, and the doctor said, I just need to let you know, Mr. and Mrs. Tice, that your son has 2 cysts on his brain. And so she told us that news, and we panicked. And so we started praying like, God, would you just take these cysts away? And we went to the next sonogram appointment after we asked for the miracle. And guess what? The cysts were still there. But we kept praying, and we went to the next sonogram, and the cysts were still there. But eventually, Nixon was born, and those cysts weren't there. And when did that miracle happen? I don't know, but it happened on the way. And I got miracle story after miracle story after miracle story where God did the miracle on the way. And I bet you have some stories of things that you can't explain that happen on the way. And I tell you that because sometimes when we're in a mess in life, sometimes when the miracle hasn't happened yet, it's so easy to believe, well, God's not good, and so I can't trust him. And I'm just here to remind somebody today, listen, you may not see the miracle today, but the miracle worker is still there. He is still good. He can still be trusted. And remember that most miracles happen on the way. Now, why do most miracles happen on the way? Here's what I think. I don't know, but I think it's because that when the miracle is happening on the way, we learn to trust God the most in the middle. When we don't have the miracle yet, that's when we learn to trust God the most. And so here's my hope for you. I hope the miracle you're asking for happens. But even if it doesn't happen, just think about this. You get to walk through the mess with the God of the universe. And guys, I think that could be one of the greatest miracles of all. And so whatever miracle you need today, I hope you get it. Keep asking for it. Keep believing for it, okay? Maybe it's that job. Keep asking for that dream job. Keep asking, to be healed. If you're single, maybe keep asking for McDreamy to slide into your messages on Christian Mingle. Keep asking for those things. And just remember that if the miracle doesn't happen right away, just remember that the miracle worker is still good and he can still be trusted. And most miracles happen, just like the story of Jesus, they happen on the way. Here's the second thing I think we learn from Jesus' first miracle. It's this. The miracle may not be what you think, but the miracle is better than you think. The miracle you're asking for, you may not get it. It may not be what you think, but the miracle is that you will get is better than you think. Now, speaking of better than you think, a couple years ago, I was down in Mexico with my wife, Stacy, and a bunch of our friends went down there. And one of my friends that went down there was Bo Dukes. Now, Bo helped lead worship this morning with Corey, which, by the way, in the band, just doing amazing. I mean, just comment of how amazing they're doing. These guys are killing it every week. And Bo is one of our worship leaders in Rehoboth, and he's been my best friend since 6th grade. And so we are psyched to be down in Mexico together. And I remember when we first got there, Bo came up to me and he's like, Joel, I have 10,000 pesos. I was like, you got 10,000 pesos? He's like, shh. I'm like, you got 10,000 pesos? He's like, I got 10,000. I'm like, you're rich. You're like Tom Brady rich. You're like, we're going to be like living La Vida Loca rich down here. And his wife, Katie, who's way smarter than both of us. Sorry, Bo, but, it's true. And she's an accountant. She's like, guys, 10,000 pesos is $500. And so nobody's going to be like living La Vida Loca, okay? But he had 10,000 pesos, and we were so excited. And I remember one night, we were out at dinner, and Bo, with his 10,000 pesos, ordered foie gras. Now, I'm from Gumboro. I didn't know what foie gras was, but, when you got 10,000 pesos in your pocket, you go to fancy restaurants and you order things that you don't know what they are. And so he ordered like foie gras. And so the foie gras comes, and Bo's like, hey, Joel, I want you to try this foie gras. I'm like, I'll try the foie gras. What is it? Which, by the way, that's the wrong sequence of words. Like, you don't need to commit to trying something before you know what it is, because the very next thing that Bo said is he's like, Joel, foie gras is pureed duck liver. I'm like, huh? He said, yeah, it's like duck liver mousse. I'm like, why is that even a thing, man? And he's like, well, I don't know. You just need to try it. And so I committed to try it. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I go to take a bite to taste test this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. This is going to be horrible. Oh my goodness. And I tried this foie gras. And this foie gras, it was awesome. It was amazing. Listen, if you ever get 10,000 pesos and you're down in Mexico, get yourself some foie gras. Okay, I can't even believe I liked it, but it was amazing. And it was way better than I expected it to be. And I tell you that because just go back to the wedding ceremony. You have the wedding coordinator, and he's got to taste test this water that's supposedly wine that these people bring to him, and he is not expecting it to be good. But he takes the drink, and he's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. This isn't water. This is wine, and this isn't even bad wine. It's not Boone's Farm. No. This is good wine. It's like 10,000 peso kind of wine. And so this is what he says after that, and this is verse 10. He says, a host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then, when everyone has had a lot to drink and the party's gone, he brings out the less expensive wine. So some of you are like getting party tips from the Bible right now. You're like, oh, this is good stuff, Pastor Joe. I'm going to write this down. You're taking notes for the first time ever in church. I guess that's okay. I don't know. But he taste tests this wine. He's like, you guys brought out the best last. And he says, you have kept the best until now. This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory. And, don't miss this, his disciples believed in him. Now, this is a crazy story. And so, in this story, the greatest miracle isn't the 180 gallons of wine that Jesus did. I think the greatest miracle is the miracle that happened after the wine miracle. And that miracle is that this is what helped his disciples believe in him. And I think sometimes for us, we're looking for a miracle. We're like, where's our miracle? Where's our miracle? And sometimes we miss out on the greatest miracle of all, that we get to be in a relationship with the one behind the miracle. Well, let me say that again. Sometimes we're looking for our miracle, but the greatest miracle of all is we get to be in a relationship with the one behind the miracle. And all a miracle is a sign that points to Jesus. And in the story of the wine, or the water turning into wine, the greatest miracle in the story isn't the wine. The wine is the sign that points to Jesus. The greatest miracle is that this is what kickstarted these guys' relationship with Jesus. It's a great story. Now, when I was growing up, I remember reading this story, and in my mind, I thought, okay, Jesus made some wine. He brought, it was like a big wine. He got some supersized wine, but, he just made wine. But Jesus made 180 gallons of wine. Okay, do you know how much that is? I have this jar right here, and this is a 5-gallon jar. And so Jesus would have turned 36 of these into wine. 36 of these into wine. Do you know how many wine bottles 36 of these would make? About 600 bottles of wine. Guys, don't miss this. Jesus brought a 600 pack of wine to the wedding party. And it was good wine. It wasn't water. It was like good. It was like vintage Boone's Farm, you guys. It was good wine. And Jesus kept the party going by giving this wedding family more wine than they expected. And it was better than anybody thought it was going to be. Now, why? Why did Jesus do that? Number one, I think it's because Jesus is generous. He's generous, and he gave them more wine than they expected to have. But I think the second thing we learn from Jesus in this story, why did he do this, is because Jesus was rescuing that family that threw the wedding party from being shamed by the entire town. Jesus was generous, and he was rescuing this family from the shame that they were going to experience from the entire town. And so this is a story of God's grace. And I think the greatest miracle of all is that God gives us more grace than we deserve. I think the greatest miracle of all is that God rescues us from shame, just like he did this family. And I think the greatest miracle of all is the imperfect us gets to spend forever with a perfect God. It's the miracle of grace. And so Jesus' first miracle is about converting water into wine. And so this is what I think about when I think about that. And we'll put this on the screen. Jesus is still converting. Jesus is still converting. I wrote some things down that he converts today. And just follow me here. Jesus is still converting. He converts sinners into saints. He converts what was lost and makes it found. He converts the helpless into the hopeful. He converts our messiness into meaning. He converts atheists into believers. He converts our fear into peace. He converts our depression into dependence on him. He converts our addiction into dependence on him. He converts our hopeless relationships into restored relationships. He can convert a virus into a revival. Guys, he is still converting. He's still changing lives. And the greatest miracle is that God changes our life. The greatest miracle of all is a life changed by Jesus. He's still converting, y'all. And I just want to end today by showing you one of my favorite pictures. And let's show this picture up here. This picture was taken last year at the Rehoboth campus on Jersey Sunday. That's why we're all kind of rocking jerseys. And let me just kind of like introduce you to everybody. This is Jeff right here. And Jeff is a Steelers fan. May the Lord forgive him. He knows not what he does. Okay, so Jeff's a Steelers fan. We got Sean. Sean is a Redskins fan. And if you're a Redskins fan, speaking of I need a miracle, you all need lots of miracles. This is me. I'm a Ravens fan because, I love Jesus. And then we have Renata here. And Renata is an Eagles fan, and so she's rooting for the wrong bird. The right bird would be the Ravens. But anyway, there's a lot of differences going on in this picture. Can you see that? All right, we are a church divided, all right? But when I look at this picture is overflowing with the miracle of a changed life. Like for instance, Jeff here was an atheist. And Jeff would have told you that his religion was science and intellect. But Jeff hit rock bottom years ago, and he was actually walking home from spending a night in jail. And he was walking down the road, and on that road, he started his relationship with Jesus. And so today, Jeff is not an atheist. He's a Jesus follower. A few months ago, I had the opportunity of dedicating Jeff's child to Jesus. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity of sharing this moment with Jeff when he went public for Jesus. And let me just tell you, this is the miracle of a changed life. Jesus is still converting today. Let's go back to the other picture. Sean here. Sean will tell you he was an atheist twice. And 3.5 years ago, he was addicted to drugs. And that addiction almost made him lose his marriage, lose his wife, lose his daughter. And today, Sean isn't an atheist. He's a Jesus follower. He's been clean for over 3 years. He's about to start leading Celebrate Recovery at the Rehoboth campus when we open back up. And in January, Sean stood on the stage in Rehoboth and preached probably the best message I have ever heard in my life. And this guy is the miracle of a changed life. And then you have Renata. And Renata, when she was in high school, she was an unbeliever. And she struggled with suicidal thoughts, depression. She struggled with anorexia. And at one point, she was 87 pounds. And she could have died. And she was laying in bed one night, and she's like, why am I still alive? And she felt like God said, me. And today, Renata is not an unbeliever. She's a Jesus follower. Renata just had her baby boy, Ezra. Renata has led a small group at Bayshore Rehoboth. She's always sitting on the front row. And Renata helps other women now who are stuck with body image struggles. And Renata is the miracle of a changed life. And you might just be tuning in and you might be thinking like, what kind of church lets previous atheists and addicts and previous people with a criminal record, what kind of church lets them lead small groups and preach on the stage? At Bayshore we do. We do. And I love our church because of that, because we recognize that the greatest miracle of all is a changed life. And so the miracle you're asking for and the miracle you get may not be what you think, but the miracle of a changed life is always better than we think. And I don't know what kind of miracle you're asking for today, but I'm just telling you, keep asking for it. Keep believing in it. And remember that most miracles happen on the way. But I also want you to remember that the greatest miracle of all is that we get to be in a relationship with the one behind the miracle. And just like Jesus gave way more wine to the wedding party than they thought they needed, he gives us way more grace than we need. And that's just not on the day that we accept him. That's the grace that we need every single day. And if you're thankful for God's grace, put some praise hands, emojis, or some comments in the comment section, because God's grace is the greatest miracle of all. And I just want to end today by saying, I hope you get your miracle. But even more than that, I hope that you look in the mirror today and remember that God's greatest miracle is your changed life. Let me pray for you guys. Jesus, I am so thankful that you go above and beyond and you are so generous. And I think if anything, this story shares with us that you're generous and you had grace towards a family that could have received shame from the entire community. And God, I think that's something that every single Jesus follower can relate to. And so God, I know that with what's going on in the world and in people's lives, we're asking for a lot of miracles. And God, I just pray that we'll continue to ask for those things. And if they're your will, they will be done. But God, I hope we don't lose sight of the fact that every single time we look in the mirror and we see the changed life and the changed things you've done in us, I hope we don't lose sight of the fact that God, that could be your greatest miracle. And so God, thank you for changing our lives. Thank you that you're a God who still does miracles and you're with us. And whether you answer the miracle we're asking for or not, we can trust that you are good and you are still working. And we love you so much, Jesus. In your name, amen.